Okay. So we just start off with a guided meditation. That's right. I haven't been here for such a long time, so I've forgotten what to do. Okay, so yeah, we just get into a comfortable position. So meditation is a time where you can just let go of the world for the next half an hour. Just it's just a nice idea to just put a stop to everything. Stop looking at your phone, stop chatting, stop talking to people, stop, just doing whatever you were doing 5 minutes ago. And just remember, that's what we do most of our lives. We're just doing, and doing. So now is an opportunity where we can just stop for half an hour. So when you meditate, you're just mindful of the moment. You can just, to do that, you can ask yourself, how do you feel? Are you tired? Well, where's your mind at the moment? Is it restless? Is it peaceful? Is it happy? Is it sad? So meditation is a time where we can look at what is going on inside. So you're just sitting down and just watching your mind calm down. Slowing down, becoming more relaxed, more quiet. So what you're trying to do is trying to start to become comfortable with your own mind. Just being able to be with yourself for half an hour and not feeling the need to go and do something else. Just being able to just sit down and just see what is happening in your mind. Not wanting anything from the meditation, but just seeing what's there. And I think like how you live your life, that's what you see in your meditation. So if you live a good life, then the meditation should be good. So we're just sitting in the moment and just being here, not wanting to have a peaceful mind or wanting to get enlightened. We're just sitting here to just be here and to, I think, notice the freedom that sitting in meditation gives us. Freedom which is free from all the busyness, and the chit chat and all the doing that happens in our life. It gives us a break from it. And in a sense, our minds can sort of re-energize and recover from the activities of the day. And this actual meditation process is calming, relaxing, and just, Buddhist monks like to use the word peaceful, just sitting down and being with the peace is all we're doing. Nothing more, nothing less. So when you're meditating, you can start to notice how beneficial stopping for half an hour can be. Just stopping and letting go of the world for half an hour is in a sense, it sort of like brings a relief and makes the mind a little bit more clearer, and it teaches us that having moments of quiet can be very relaxing. And so when you can see the benefits of just doing nothing for a little while, then you start to meditate a little bit more. So, so now I'm gonna end the meditation by ringing the gong a few times, and just take a moment to just appreciate the just giving yourself the opportunity to stop for a little while. It's always a very nice thing to do.